Welcome to this episode of Million Hour Life. My name is Eric Butch, your host, and honored to welcome a good friend and one of the smartest people I know, Geoff Passehl with Northwestern Mutual and Wealth and Wellness. How are you today, Geoff?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Good. So let's start talking a little bit about your expertise as a financial advisor. Before we do that, let's just remind everybody, anything we talk about is just for conversational purposes. Nothing Geoff says is for individual financial advice. You should always talk to someone like Geoff one-on-one to talk about your individual goals and ideas before making any financial investments. And for me, anything that I talk about is no guarantee that you're going to live to be 1,000,000 hours old. We're just a group of like-minded people, hopefully figuring out things together that help us extend our lives, and if nothing else, live a healthier life as we get older and be playing pickleball into our 90s. So, Geoff, so first let's talk a little bit about Northwestern Mutual and your job as a financial advisor. One of the things I'm most impressed about, because I see lots of people that are in the financial world, the number of acronyms that you have, designations you have after your signature are pretty extensive and impressive. Talk a little bit about what those mean and why they're important for both you and your clients.
So, so there's an institution called the American College. It is a educational facility specifically designed to support the wealth management or the financial planning space.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, it's the only accredited educational facility that does support a specific profession.
Got it.
And so the American College has been in existence for a great number of years and puts forth curriculum that anyone, it doesn't even have to be in the financial services space, right? So other folks from other professional disciplines could tap into the American College if they desire to further their education in a particular field. Most of it centers around the wealth management space and all the various complexities therein. And so I just decided very early on in my career that there's a lot of folks in the industry, right? Financial services is a really wide and deep river. And how do you distinguish yourself as somebody who really treats it as a profession?
Yeah.
And to me, that's you go about furthering your education so that you can be more valuable to your clients. And so it started out 20 plus years ago in my initial efforts to obtain what's referred to as my CLU. That's a chartered life underwriter. And it's really about sort of complexities of insurance in the financial planning world.
Got it.
That's 8 separate and distinct courses, each with their own corresponding final. And then once you're done all 8, you achieve the CLU designation. And then I just continued to go on. And so I actually literally last week just completed my 8th. So
okay.
I now have 8 financial planning designations in various degrees of, or various specific areas of planning.
Now, are any of them related to what we're talking about today, which is, health along with wealth and tying those together? Or is that pretty much something that you're pioneering for the space rather than something you're, learning about through courses or?
So I think I could argue that any sound planning presents an opportunity for somebody to be more well, at least emotionally, just because of all of the angst or anxiety that comes along with the topic of money or the feeling of being unplanned or not really having some confidence in what the future might hold. And so I could argue that all of them touch the world of wellness in one way, shape, or form, but none of them have a specific, end game of this notion of wellness. That's something that we had tied together a number of years ago in some of our own introspective planning efforts, wherein we began to realize that we really love the notion of bringing together both something that we think we have a strong expertise in, sort of the world of wealth management, and something we have a lot of passion for, which is the world of wellness. And And so how do we bring those two things together, and then hence the establishment of Wealth and Wellness, which is a brand we own. And so we put forth efforts to bring together our clients or friends of the firm on a periodic basis to try to marry these things together. And the whole notion behind it is, while it feels great to have a positive impact in our clients from a wealth management perspective, to know that they are moving in the direction of their goals and objectives more confidently because of the work that we do with them, from a wealth management and just from an overall goals and life perspective, that it would all be for naught if they got to a more advanced age and couldn't live well.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't really make much sense to us, right? Like if you have a bunch of money.
Yeah. What good is wealth if you don't have health? So
yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to us.
I'm sure you've seen it happen where someone amasses their life savings and just a couple of events, maybe because they didn't take good enough care of their physical apparatus, can take their wealth and what they thought they were leaving to their family.
Absolutely. And you take it a step further, we have to recognize that there are just certain elements of health or wellness that unfortunately are chance, right? Yeah. We might do everything perfectly well.
Sure.
And then still have a bad stroke of luck.
Absolutely.
Same thing goes from your wealth management perspective, right? I mean,
yep.
Nobody, and I'm going to say this at the risk of my own professional peril, nobody's financial plan is ever perfect.
No.
Mine included. And I've been doing it for 25 years.
Sure.
It's just, generally speaking, are we moving down the pathway that is generally productive in the direction of our goals and gives us a high degree of confidence that most, if not all, the really important things to us are likely to have a positive outcome. I think the same thing goes from a health perspective, right? Do I eat perfectly all the time? Of course not, right?
Who does?
Do I work out perfectly all the time? Of course not. I don't even know what working out perfectly even is.
Yeah.
But if I'm working in that direction, generally speaking, am I giving myself a better chance for the outcome I desire?
Yeah, I know you are a workout person. Like, you're always at least focusing on being physically healthy. And also, I've gone to breakfast with you. You eat well. Like you said, nobody eats perfectly, but I can tell you're paying attention to your diet and because we all know you can't outrun a bad diet. So you got to mix them both together to really have a chance of, getting to 90. And like I said, this is how I look at it. We all age in one or two ways, and we all die, unfortunately, in one or two ways. We either slowly decline over a 10 or a 15-year period, or we fall off a cliff, and it happens pretty quickly. And I'm really just focusing on trying to live the healthiest life I can so I can fall off a cliff. I don't want to see myself go down the slide. I'd rather just fall off the cliff. So
couldn't agree more.
Now, when we talk about wealth and wellness, so Million Hour Life, I have a goal. I want to live to be 1,000,000 hours old, which is 115 years old. And B, I'd love to share enough information to help other people gain 1,000,000 years of life. If I can help 100,000 people live an extra 10 years, I've accomplished really the big overall goal for everybody. And it's creating 1,000,000 years while I'm living to 1,000,000 hours. Does wealth and wellness have any long-term goal, or is it really just making sure people are aware?
Yeah, so it's probably not as quantifiable as the 1,000,000 hour goal is and the 1,000,000 year objective. But it is symbolically very similar. Right? We do want our firm, which is Passehl Financial. As you mentioned earlier, I have an affiliation, but Passehl Financial is my firm.
Understood.
And our objective is to help the people that we get the privilege to work with, and then hopefully they appreciate the opportunity to work with us, to experience this marrying together of these two really important aspects of their life, if not pillars of their life, right? Their overall wealth management as well as their overall wellness, and bring them together in such a way where the legacy of our firm will last well beyond my years of running it. And it will impact generations of our clients or friends of our firms in this super important way. So we haven't quantified it. Maybe we should work on quantifying it. I am kind of a numbers guy, so it sounds attractive to me, but haven't gone that far.
Now, in your overall, just an opinion, what percentage of your clients are on board for this themselves compared to what percentage of people, and just an estimate, of course, would you think really just care about their financial life and don't see the marrying of health and wealth together?
Oh, it's an interesting question. So I think we're pretty selective about who we're interested in working with. We really want to be sure that we work with as many like-minded people as possible. Now, that doesn't mean like-minded means that they have to be soccer fans because we enjoy soccer, or right. It's just that like-minded people to us are people who are not only doing well financially, right? And that usually comes from a lot of hard work, right? Like,
I know you,
family-centered, community impactful, positive impact on the community. They want to be part of something bigger than just themselves, right? So I have gotten introduced to people over the years who are very financially centric, right? It's the only thing they care about and think about. And quite frankly, we will figure out a way to professionally excuse ourselves from those potential relationships because it's just not going to work well for us. But I think, to go back to your question about a percentage, it's interesting. I think if you talk about this notion of bringing these two things together in this, I'll call it non-threatening way, right? It's not I'm telling you this or I told you that. It's
have to do this.
Right. It's more of a, gee, if we could help you to marry these concepts together, would that be appealing to you? It's almost a unanimous, like, sure, of course. If I can figure out ways to improve my wellness while I'm working on my wealth management, that seems like a pretty cool combination. And so, dare I say 100% of our clients are interested in that combination, but some overwhelmingly large percentage.
Yeah, I would think it's an easy case to make to marry those two things together, because as their financial advisor, it's really easy to explain that the healthier you are, the less money you have to spend on your health as you get older compared to the money you can spend vacationing because you're in great shape and not spending thousands of dollars a month on prescriptions and doctors that you might be able to avoid if you pay attention as you're younger.
Yeah, I think, to use a legal analogy, and by that I mean in the practice of law.
Yeah.
One of our clients was fond of saying to his clients, hey, listen, you could either pay my firm now some volume of dollars to proactively do some smart planning, to think through some things, to document it appropriately, and get your legal planning on good, solid foundation, or you could do none of that. And then when things go really south, good news for me is you're going to pay my firm a whole hell of a lot more money in the future because you're going to be in litigation or there's going to be real problems.
Yeah.
So I think you could take the same analogy to the world of wellness, right? Like, you could spend time, energy, and some money on being proactive about your overall approach to wellness, or don't. And then, like you just said, perhaps down the line, you might be one of the unfortunate part of the population who ends up having a really expensive set of medical care costs.
I like the way
it doesn't negate the fact that for some of us, we're just going to be unlucky. And
of course,
something's going to happen that we just...
Life is a roll of the dice, and it can always not go your way. I like the way my one of my mentors, probably the person I followed closest in life to try and become better than who I was when I was younger, is Jim Rohn. And I like the way Jim Rohn says, it's all pain. It's just a matter of the pain of preparation weighs ounces and the pain of not preparing weighs tons. So you're either going to pay a little bit now and it feels good and makes you stronger, or you're going to pay a lot in the end and it's going to crush you.
So it's interesting. So you could take that same analogy and you could probably move it into the wealth management space, right? Oftentimes we're encouraging clients to think of sound wealth management planning as an element of delayed gratification with a really big payoff, right? So because I can either get Eric to carve out some of his operating capital today, and not spend it on something fun or interesting that he might even forget about a week later, a month later, what have you. And put it someplace that in however many years into the future, it should be a larger version of itself and help to afford and pay for all the things that he's going to want to do in the future. Right? But if you don't do that, you'll probably never get to that future. Right? So carve out a smaller amount today to have a much bigger, more fulfilled experience in the future.
When you may need it, where right now, usually the things you buy in our, before retirement years are things we don't need. They're things that we think are going to make us happy. And usually then when we get to those later years, we're regretting some of those. And, I like that the little things that you buy now may make you have to, that aren't important, may make you have to sell the things that are important later. So
it's a trade-off that most people are going to make inadvertently, right? They're not going to purposely make that trade-off. They are almost by mistake or default making that trade-off.
So with your own, now let's talk a little bit about your own personal, wellness plan. Do you have a morning routine and a regimen that you follow? You seem like the kind of person that would follow some type of routine, daily, weekly. Do you do that? Or do you just kind of work out when you can work out? And
there's definitely an element of routine along with need for flexibility. So I'd almost look at it like it's freedom within a framework. Where I have a framework that I'm trying to make sure is addressed, let's say on a weekly basis. But there has to be freedom and flexibility in it because I'm the father of 3 busy kids and I like to be as involved in their lives as I can. And so I might desire to go to a workout class this afternoon at 4:00, but my son has a lacrosse game that I'm certainly not going to miss. And so I'll do the lacrosse game and I'll figure out a different time to get that workout in. And so, generally speaking, I think I'm a fairly disciplined person, but I've built flexibility. And I think what changed for me is everything begins with a mindset or a decision, right? Right. Like your decision to run your next marathon that's first an idea. And then you start figuring out, okay, well, how do I put that idea into motion? Right. And so for me, it was about a dozen years ago that I decided that part of my business plan was to get healthy, to get fit again, and to do whatever I can do to stay fit. Because there was a bunch of years where I was not fit.
I don't remember those years, Geoff. You always seemed in pretty good shape.
I'll show you some pictures. I'll show you some pictures. So yeah, I mean, there was a stretch of time where I had 3 young kids. I was building a business. I built a home down at the beach. Well, I didn't build it, but I paid somebody to build it. I was very involved in that
project
a whole year. And then not too long thereafter, we decided to move our primary home, but we had a baby at home and 2 other young kids. And so we went and moved to the beach, and now I'm commuting from.
Something's got to give when that's your life.
I didn't see the inside of a gym for a great number of years.
Understood. You and me both.
Yeah, my diet was terrible, and it was, it happened. And so, but then making the decision that fitness and being well is now part of my business. That changed it for me, right? Because for me, growing and building my firm was always going to be part of my life, right? Because that supported everything I needed and wanted to do from a family perspective, from a provider perspective. And so if I can fit something into that business plan that would sort of generally bode well, that just made sense to me. And then what I started to realize was well, gee, how can I be as positively impactful for my clients or as positively impactful for my team or my staff if I don't feel well?
Yeah.
Right. I just don't feel great. Right. I think I used to be this athlete, and now I'm here in this space and time where I'm really not. Like I'm a person who used to be an athlete. Right. Like
former athlete. And when you don't think of yourself as an athlete anymore, that's not a good thing.
No, especially when at least growing up, you kind of had that as part of your
identity.
Big time. Yeah. And so making that decision was super helpful. The way I was able to fit into my schedule, to your question earlier, was earlier on when I had young kids. Now my kids are 20, 18, and 14, so not as young anymore. I would go to the 5:30 a.m. CrossFit class.
Yeah.
Almost every weekday. And so that way I was done my workout by the time the kids were getting up.
Yeah.
I would be back home and then, see the kids, quick shower, get to the office, run a full day professionally, but I'd already gotten that workout in.
Smart way to do it. Because I believe working out early just sets your day. And if you try and work out at night, first of all, your sleep might be impacted. But second of all, it's like now you're thinking about that all day and what you have to do later instead of getting it out early and then just feeling great about what you already accomplished before you started your day. So
totally agree. And I think for a lot of folks, it's you got to do what works for you, right? So then what ended up happening for me was then my kids got a little older and then they started to get really involved in athletics. And fortunately, both my wife and I were able to coach many of their teams, sometimes together, but mostly separately.
Cool.
And so what ended up happening was now my days were stretching into early, if not even late evenings. And so I had to then figure out, okay, well, where can I work this fitness routine into a schedule wherein, I might be on a soccer field or at a basketball court until 9:30 at night. And so by the time I got home and wind down, and then maybe I have kids doing homework until 11:30, 12 at night, it's really hard to then turn that thing back around at 4:45 in the morning to get up and go to the gym. And so I started to work out or get workouts built into my schedule late afternoon, early evening, after a full day of work, before I was on a soccer field or a basketball court. And so that really worked well for me. But it was still part of the deal, right? It had to happen. And then what I started to realize was, well, gee, I'm doing all this hard work physically in the gym and from a time commitment perspective. So how do I give myself the best opportunity for that to be as effective as possible? And so then I started to realize, okay, there's a big nutrition part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were saying earlier, you can't outrun a bad diet, right? And to me, it was like, I don't want to go keep banging my head against the concrete in this CrossFit gym and not give myself the best opportunity to recover.
Yeah.
And then maybe go back at it again the next day or whatever it might be. So I started to do some research and identified a sort of nutritional regimen that I thought would be effective. And I did that for a while. And then I did something else for a while. And then ultimately I ended up hiring a nutrition coach.
So I did so. So do you take supplements, or is it really just more what foods you don't let into your diet and let into your diet?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly nutrition driven. The only supplement that I've ever done for any period of time is creatine. It's the most probably widely researched nutritional supplement in the history of mankind, and seems to have some positive impacts without a whole heck of a lot of risk. Now, who knows? We might find out in 5 years there's some giant risk to that one too. But
no, like you said, it's been studied long enough that creatine kind of withstood the questions of, is it good for you or bad for you? And I think everyone should have creatine as a supplement in their diet, especially if they're doing any working out and having to replace nutrients.
Net, it seems to be a pretty positive impact for most. And then there's a number of vitamins I'm on, but that's it. Vitamin D, vitamin B. Nothing easy at night before I go to bed. It's a pretty basic vitamin protocol, and then mostly it's just eating in a very specific way. Now that doesn't mean it has to be like some boring and terrible tasting way. It's just
No.
certain macronutrients I'm looking to achieve on a daily and weekly basis, and I track them. That's the other thing, right? It's
what you don't track doesn't matter.
It's really hard to know whether or not you're heading down the right pathway if you're not tracking it.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm very religious, so I'm big on that. So I hired a doctor not covered by medical insurance that I go to twice a year that does a really in-depth blood test. So it's not me just wondering what I'm doing. It's literally looking at the biomarkers and what I need to change or affect, and then rechecking it again in 6 months to see where I'm at on that path to hopefully starting to reverse my age somewhat, or keep myself from, as I'm chronologically getting older, staying as young as I can get.
It's interesting. I too visit with a what I would call functional medicine or holistic doc fairly regularly, and do the same thing, right? Blood tests, biomarkers, what have you. And to your point, most of it's never going to be covered by your traditional health insurance provider. And I think the way to handle this, or the way to approach it, is we would all probably be fairly wise to the extent we have the financial ability to do so. So I don't want to belittle that part of it.
Understood. Some people are just getting by. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if you have the means.
To the extent you have the means, which does not have to be a gigantic sum of money.
Nope.
It's not like you have a private doc in your back pocket, but you're going to have to come out of pocket a certain amount of money, more than likely to go down this pathway. But to the extent you can, I like the idea of likening or creating the analogy that my health insurance should be a lot like my car insurance, right? I don't rely on my car insurance to keep my vehicles in good working condition.
Sure.
I have to come out of pocket to do some of that, right?
Yes.
Whether the oil changes, brake pads, whatever it might be. By the way, I know nothing about cars, but
it's good analogies, Phil. You're good at analogies, even if you know nothing about cars.
I know nothing about cars. So, but if you have to come out of pocket a certain amount of money on a regular basis, let's call it an annual basis, to maintain your vehicles in good working order, then the same thing could apply to me physically, right? I'm going to need to engage a maintenance protocol that I probably have to pay for.
Yeah.
And then what my insurance is there for is if something really goes wrong.
God forbid.
Right. So if I get into a car accident or if my car gets stolen, that's where my car insurance kicks in. That's where the real value is provided.
But at the same time, you wouldn't not change your oil because you have car insurance. That.
Correct.
God, totally understand, right? Makes sense. So I love that you do that, Geoff, because to me, I look at it this way. I have two types of doctors. I have my sickness doctor, and ironically, we're talking about wealth and wellness. I call my other doctor my wellness doctor. So I go to my one doctor to make sure I don't have to go often to the other doctor. The sickness doctor I try to go to once a year to go, yup, here's all the stuff I'm doing. Look at my blood work. Okay, are we good? And then my wellness doctor I go to twice a year to go, all right, what are we going to do? So I have to go to that person just once a year to get clearance.
Yeah, it might even be to the point where it's a bit of a misnomer, right? We call it health insurance, but we've probably moved in a direction where it really should just be called sick insurance.
Sick, right? Yes. Because I very rarely
access the value of it is if you're sick.
I never go to my sickness doctor and they're like, well, let's work on this. It's more like write a prescription for what you have wrong with you and get out of here. It's like, well, that's not what I want. I want to figure out how to not need these prescriptions.
And I'm not faulting anyone who's in that space, right? Because at the end of the day, there's a certain construct for which they operate within.
Yep.
And I get it, right? I mean, your typical primary care doc these days in sort of the area that we live in probably has 3,000 patient files. That's a lot of human beings to care for when they're sick. Yep. That's a hard job. That is, that's tough.
It is.
So you probably can't spend an hour and a half with your primary care doc for a regular visit because he or she has 2,999 others of you.
Yep. And I can respect that. That's why I'll never get rid of my sickness doctor.
No.
I just want to visit them less, So knowing that it's information, a lot of what we need is the information on what to do and what not to do. Are there experts in the wellness field that you follow that you think of are of people who are worth listening to for yourself or recommending for others?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a podcast junkie. And
You and me both.
Yeah, so I am regularly listening to podcasts. My wife actually can't stand it because every time she gets in the car and one of my podcasts pops on, it's at a minimum of 1.5 speed.
I do 1.5 speed too. That's hilarious.
And she's like, why? How do you listen to it? It causes me anxiety to listen to that at that speed.
Get more information in.
That's how I am. Or sometimes I'll, depending on the person's cadence, and whether or not they have an accent, I might crank it up to 2 speed.
That's funny. I never do. I sometimes crank it down to 1.25, and then I typically listen at 1.5. So that is hilarious. So yeah, knowing you, I could guess some of the people that you listen to. I'm guessing. What's that?
Give it a shot.
So most people that have the outlook we have at our age listen to Andrew Huberman.
Yep.
Okay.
Genius from Stanford who is constantly doing work in the lab.
Love him. To me, he kind of bridges. He knows I'm not smart as a listener, but he can have conversations with people that are as smart as him and keep me involved, which sometimes the people I listen to, I'm like, you're just doctors talking to each other. And I don't get much out of it. Where Andrew Huberman seems to be that guy who really does bridge the gap. I also, a newer person, Gary Brecka. You listen to any Gary Brecka?
I've heard Gary. Sure.
My favorite is a guy named Paul Saladino. You know who Dr. Saladino is?
I don't know that one.
All right. You should check out his podcast when you get a chance because he is big on nutrition and diet and, what you have heard and been told compared to the reality that he's studied in labs. So I love those people. I love those people who, are open-minded, but data-driven. To me, they're the perfect combination of people I like to listen to. All right, give me some others. Who didn't I name?
Dr. Peter Attia.
I love Attia. I should have known Attia.
Yeah, and you got
he's one of those ones that sometimes gets over my head. I've read his book. I should say I audio read his book. And loved it. But there are times when I'm like going back 3 times to try and get a grasp on that. He does sometimes dumb it down for me. Love it to you.
Yeah. So Outlive is an awesome book.
Yes.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. His podcast at times gets super technical.
Yeah.
What I really appreciate about Attia, which I appreciate about just humans in general, is admitting when he was going down the wrong path.
Yes.
Right. So, he's certainly a super bright guy. He is I would call him almost a throwback scientist in the respect that he's consistently experimenting on himself.
Yep.
And then is not afraid to come back and let the listener know I was going down the wrong path. Or I thought this, and here's why I thought this, and now I currently believe this. And that can all change too, right? And so, big fan of Attia. I thought the book was awesome.
Me too.
So Attia would be one that I would recommend for those who are interested in the topic and just recognize that from time to time, to your point, he's going to speak in a way where you're just not going to understand him.
Well, he's my world. Like he's all about longevity. He's all about how do we make this train ride last longer? And, again, but data driven. He's not just throwing, even though he does a lot on himself. Like he's the type of person who will experiment kind of on himself, but he's doing it with a lot of data that he's following closely to see what he should be doing. And like you said, he's one of those ones that'll come out and say, I thought this, I think differently now. And I love that. I love that. It's not all just about protecting seeming smart. So,
and he's actually recently done a pretty big reversal on his approach to fasting. But even with his reversal, I don't think he's going to be willing to say that this is definitively what you should do.
Are you a faster?
I'm not.
I am.
And listen, what works for you, right?
I love the idea of autophagy. I love the idea of maybe taking everything out of my system for a few days a month, kind of pushes the reset button and gets rid of things that my body might not get rid of if I didn't fast. So I've only been doing it for about a year, but I do intermittent fasting every day.
Okay.
And then 3 days a month, I'll go just coffee and water.
So it's interesting, even within my own home, right? My wife is pretty committed to a lot of the same things we're talking about. And she has had a lot of what I would call success. And that doesn't have to mean anything other than success to her.
Yeah.
With intermittent fasting. And I did it from time to time, but in working with my nutrition coach and with some of my goals, objectives, and some of the activities I like to do, she's not a big fan of, my coach is not a big fan of me doing much in the way of fasting.
Like everything, each person is different. So what might be right for someone else, like you said, for your wife, might not be right for you. So that makes sense.
I think there's a ton of bio-individualism that
Absolutely
comes into this space. And I think if you're not willing to be iterative, you're probably setting yourself up for some disappointment, right? It's almost like somebody might ask, okay, well, what's the best nutritional approach? I've heard it's paleo, it's keto, it's Whole30, it's the Mediterranean diet, it's the carnivore diet. It's okay, what's the best one? I don't know, the one that works best for you.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is they all have something in common, or they all have certain threads or themes in common, right? Like
whole food.
Right. Try to reduce processed foods to the extent you can. Don't add a ton of sugar to stuff that probably doesn't need it or warrant it. Try to avoid things that like high fructose corn syrup or certain
seed
kind of
oils,
nasty things that you probably shouldn't be ingesting a ton of, right? And then from there, it's a matter of, well, kind of what works best for you.
Yeah.
Right. If I were on the verge of being a type 2 diabetic, I would probably be choosing one pathway. And if I were a Ironman triathlete, which God forbid, I am never going to be that.
Me neither.
I would be going a very different way. Right?
Yeah. Makes sense. And now, you ever hear one other one I want to throw out? You ever hear of David Sinclair?
I'm not, but I'm going to write that one down too.
You should write him down. I like him because he's a Harvard, not a doctor, has his doctorate, not a practicing doctor, but has been working in the labs for the last 30 years on mostly animals, mice, dogs. But he's proven that a combination of supplements that I take every day and have been taking for a couple of years can possibly reverse our age. So he can take mice that are equal to a 70-year-old mouse and give them a group of supplements that can make them into a equivalent of a 30-year-old mouse. And they think that they're close within the next few years to being able to continually reset that. When the mouse gets to 70, put them back to 30. When the mouse gets to 70, put them back to 30. And it just seems like things where it's like, oh, I don't think that could hurt. My wellness doctor doesn't think it could hurt. So although what I want to do next now is start to measure that and track that. Like, okay, what is my chronic age? And I did it in the beginning, but I haven't rechecked to see, have I been able to reduce my biological age as I'm chronologically getting older? I just know I feel like I'm 30 again as I'm about to turn 50. So another one that I would throw on the list of definitely worth listening. It dumbs it down. Also a little tough to follow sometimes, but well worth the information you get from him. So
is he studying and or doing work on telomeres?
Yes, big on telomeres. Big on extent. Although they're starting to find out that telomere, at least what I hear from David Sinclair, telomeres aren't quite as important as they thought they were 5-10 years ago. Still important, but not the end all be all that they thought extending those telomeres was equal to longevity.
It's an evolution, right? It's a constant iterative space.
Yep. We're at that age, Geoff. We're in that generation where we could be those first people who comfortably live to 100. As I like to use this analogy. I believe the next 30 years of medicine is going to be equal to the last 30 years of computers. So the things are going to change in our health over the next 30 years, the way Mac computer in 1993 is now your smartphone in your pocket in 2024.
I got to imagine you're probably not too far afield in that suggestion. And I think it dovetails well into some of the things that I'm working on just sort of personally. Is I don't have this notion or this desire that I'm going to live forever. And I don't necessarily want to live to some predetermined really old age if I can't do it well.
Yes.
Right. I want to live well as long as I can.
Agreed.
And then the interesting thing is to just tie it back into this world of wealth management. It's an interesting dynamic. If you model somebody's financial future with the assumption that they're going to retire, and by that I mean they're just no longer going to work for income, right?
Yeah.
Now, that might not mean that they've retired mentally, emotionally, or productivity from a productive perspective. They just might go volunteer a boatload of their times at charity.
Work at their church, coach soccer teams. Yep.
They might still be positively impactful in their community. They might still be very engaged and involved, but they're just not
clocking in and clocking out.
Right. The economic gain component of it is no longer there. Well, I don't see that going to some dramatically later age in life. Right. I don't see, if the average age of retirement 20 years ago was mid 60s, I don't think 20 years from now it's going to be mid 80s.
No.
Right. I think it's going to be still generally in that, let's call it mid to late 60s time frame. But the challenge becomes, well, what if your life expectancy at that point is 4 decades?
Yeah.
And not 1 decade or a decade and a half.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you need an economic engine built such that when you get to that point where you no longer wish to work for economic gain, that engine is not going to run out of gasoline or solar power or electricity or whatever the source of fuel is when you are in your 80s and really vulnerable. We need to make sure that that economic engine is still running when you're 105 and still active.
Jeff, that's one of the reasons I thought this was important to have you on, because as much as I want to live long and teach other people things that I'm learning that will hopefully help us all live long, the one thing we don't want to do is outlive our money, because it would be somewhat of a miserable life, no matter how healthy you are. If you're old and poor, that's almost as bad as old and unhealthy. So believe me, I am constantly thinking about, like, okay, if I want to stop working at a certain age, what can I do for my financial portfolio, for rental properties, for ways that I can have assets continue to help me live as long as I can make it, and then spend as little as I can on health, because I did the right things with my health as I get older.
And if you don't want to rely on your son to provide
that, I don't want to rely on it. And I even told my son and my grandson, like, just be careful, because no matter how much money you think I have, I plan on spending it all on me living healthier longer. So let me just teach you some stuff so that you can get your own money, because I promise you, I plan on having none of it by the time I'm done, because I'm going to have used it to live better. Yeah. My legacy is what you get from me as an example, not what you get from me when I go. So
I get it. And there's one component part of that we have to be a little bit cognizant of, which is you can't pass away penniless.
No.
You know why?
No.
Because you're married.
Yes.
And we can't have you pass away penniless, because then that might mean that she is as well.
Well, listen, that's why I listened to my friend Geoff Passehl explain to me, and I finally understood it as I got older, the importance of something like whole life insurance, and using that not only as a way to stop myself from, if I pass, Now my wife is penniless, but also, things that I never thought about that I'm so glad you taught me, like having a whole life policy is so important, because once you stop working and now we're relying on our assets to pay our bills, what happens when the stock market has a bad year and you don't want to take your funds out of the market because they're already down 30%? You're able to then rely on your whole life insurance and then catch up when the market comes back and not have to have taken a big chunk out of what you need to grow in a time when it wasn't smart to take money out. Geoff, I never understood that. To me, whole life insurance was, I got that it was an investment, but I didn't understand why I was doing it like I do now. So
yeah, we're often positioning that for clients as, it's certainly not an investment. It's not an investment alternative. It's just it's an asset on the balance sheet that doesn't act like many of your other investments do. It's what's referred to as not correlated at all. And it can be called upon when, not if, when the markets aren't very favorable and we're retired.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's going to happen. Market cycles are going to continue to happen over and over and over again. I'd love to believe that the investment markets that we all participate in our IRAs, in our Roth IRAs, in our after-tax investment portfolios, are all going to just trend positively week over week, month over month, year over year, and never dip. But that's not true. That's never going to happen. And so they are going to cycle. And that means we're going to have volatility. It's something to embrace, not to avoid. And let's just recognize that there's just going to be times when we're in our retirement years where we need to call in a bucket of money to get through the following year worth of expenses and lifestyle and enjoyment. And we're probably not going to sell off our investment positions because they just suffered a pretty bad loss.
Yeah.
2022. And so I want to go someplace else to go find some money to get through 2023. Right, just to use the last couple of years as an example.
Yep. And I like that it kind of takes, for me anyway, it takes the worry out of it, because now it's not a worry about what happens if there is a bad year when I'm retired. It's like, okay, here's my plan if there's a bad year when I'm retired, which to me, just taking the stress of retirement with having to worry about that is valuable, above and beyond just having the resource.
And it's interesting, if you look back on markets, and I'd like to think that my team, both here at my firm, but then also my extended team, with people that we can tap into for resources and ideas and study and concepts, what you see historically is your great upside days, especially in the equity markets, tend to be buried within a cluster of really bad days, right? And so this notion that we don't want to sell off positions in a down market are even exasperated by the knowledge that somewhere in that down market
is a huge
giant upside day.
Yeah.
And if we miss it, we miss a whole lot of the opportunity that we have as investors.
Yeah.
And we just don't want to be in a position where we miss those great opportunities.
Yeah, I've taken your advice on that with not trying to time it, because you just got to be consistent and keep doing what's right. Because if you miss those couple of amazing days after those bad times, it could take you decades longer to recover. So
if I thought that we could make a positive impact in the community, in our clients' lives, by timing upside and downside and knowing when to bail out of investment positions and then knowing when to get back in, I think you've got to imagine that we would be all in on that strategy.
Yeah.
But it's fool's gold. It's never going to happen. I don't care how studied you are and how smart we think we are.
Can't predict the future.
There are too many market forces at play for us to be able to predict what's going to happen literally this afternoon, let alone next week. Right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. And once you understand that, it's freeing, right? There's so many bias. There's so many just sort of inherent hardwired biases in our DNA and the way our brains function that really fight against you as an investor, right? There's this perceived expertise that we all have if we believe that we are above average intelligence, that we should be able to fill in the blank.
predict.
No. And the smarter you perceive you are, the more likely you are to that.
It's also, too, the older we get, the more, this is just me speaking individually, the more I kind of feel like, oh, I've been through this before. I know what's going to happen. But it's like, no, wait, you think you've been through this before, but you just remember what you remember. So it's never the same time, the same, this is 2006. I know what I got to do here. Like, no, it's not. There's things that are similar. There's things that are different. I deal with that in the housing market. You know, people thinking, I've been through this before. Here comes 2009 and the crash. It's like totally different background, totally different supply and demand. You know, it just because it feels similar in ways doesn't make it the same. So
there's so many biases that we all walk around with. And the one you just sort of referenced that's often cropped up in my business is a recency bias.
Yeah.
Right? Like we believe that because we just experienced this, that we know what's going to come next. And it's just not true.
No.
It's not, right? It's markets are going to do whatever they're going to do, and what causes them to do it is not very knowable. Right? If I would have encouraged you as a client of our firm for years and years and years, if I would have come to you in April of 2020 and said, Eric, listen, dude, I'm telling you, I get it. The market just sold off into bear market territory as fast as it ever has in history.
Yeah.
I think it's 18 days for the market to sell off into bear market, equities markets to sell off into bear market territory. But I tell you what, it's now April of 2020. I think you should take all the cash you have on the sideline and push it into the equities markets. My guess is you would have been shopping for a new financial advisor the next day.
Yes.
Now,
even though
4 years later, that would have been a genius thing to do, right?
Like, he's a genius.
It would have been the genius thing to do. So I would have been fired by my client for making the recommendation, even though in hindsight it would have been the right recommendation, which, by the way, I made to nobody, including myself, because I didn't know that. But the point is, timing markets is impossible. You got to time the down and the up. It's
safe to say that the best, I mean, everyone talks about balance, but being well balanced is really the only thing that you can control and focus on, you know, not the ups and downs. It's the roundness of your plan, right?
We call it asset allocation, right? Making sure that your assets are allocated in an appropriate way. We would take it a step farther and call it asset location planning, where we put certain asset classes in certain types of accounts based on the taxation of those accounts. So if it's asset allocation, asset location, approach it very unemotionally, rebalance the portfolio on an as-needed basis, and then make sure that, to the extent we can, that all the different asset classes are represented by really high-quality investment solutions, which you can only do if you're agnostic in the marketplace, right? We don't have a pony in the race, right? We're just helping to analyze what's out there. And if you can do that and do some additional heady things like tax loss harvesting and some stuff that's very planning oriented, it's not investment selection oriented, you can fare well in almost anything the market throws at you. And one of the things to keep in mind, and this is a hard thing for people to get their minds around initially, but then I think they come along and they get it. By virtue of being diversified, by virtue of building a well-rounded portfolio, to use your suggestion, which is a good one, you are accepting the fact that you will not get the rate of return available in 2024, let's say, right, on December 31st of 2024, whatever the best performing asset class was in the calendar year, whatever had the highest rate of return, you're accepting that you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Because you aren't all in on that asset class.
Sure.
But in exchange for that, you're also not likely to experience whatever that worst asset class was in the same year, right? And so the analogy I like to use for clients is, rather than riding the giant roller coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure and experiencing G-forces that are really uncomfortable, and maybe if you're like me, getting off of it and throwing up. What you want to be on is really the baby roller coaster.
The log flume. Your hands are still up, but if worst case scenario, you're getting a little wet. Nobody's throwing up on the log flume.
You're going to survive it, and you're not going to want to get off of it.
It's good advice.
Because you're terrified.
It's funny. I use the roller coaster analogy in my industry as well, because I tell everybody buying a house, it's a roller coaster ride. You're either going to get off that ride with your hands up and tell your friends, like, listen, it was crazy, it was scary, but it was fun. Or you're going to get off that ride and go, don't ever get on that ride again. I felt like I was going to die. And my goal is to make you get off the ride with your hands up. So
I like it.
Nice, Geoff. Listen, love tying this all together. I know you're probably sick of hearing it because I say it to everybody, but I'm going to put it out there. If anyone is looking for a financial advisor, not only because of all of his designations, the reason why Geoff will always be my financial advisor is because I've known him since he was 8 years old. And when we were all little bastards doing whatever we had to do to win in sports, Geoff was the guy who I would want to punch because he would go over and tell the ref, nah, Mr. Referee, I actually kicked that ball out of bounds. That wasn't the other team. That should be their ball. And I'd be like, you motherfucker. And now as I'm older, I'm like, but who else would I trust than the guy who didn't cheat when we were all just caring about winning? So if you need somebody, Passehl Financial, Geoff Passehl, I highly recommend taking some time with him and seeing if, like you said earlier, if you're a right fit for him, if he's a right fit for you. But to me, nothing more important than being able to trust the person you work with. And I trust you with everything. So
I appreciate it. And for the record, he never punched me.
No, I never punched you, but I wanted to. I'm like, damn it, Geoff, we had the ball. We're down by 1 goal. And you had to be honest? Yes, he did.
All right, at the conference, we'd come back and win anyway.
Usually that was the case. And if we did, you were a big part of it. So I can't deny that that there was definitely the balance of it's worth having Geoff on our team, even if he's going to tell on us. We don't do the right thing. So, all right, Geoff. Awesome. Any other information I should get out there? Passehl Financial is where people could connect with you with. Your team's awesome. So even if it's not Geoff, anyone on his team is an expert and knows almost what Geoff knows. So,
listen, my team is filled with smart, dedicated professionals who care about what they do, and
no doubt.
Quite honestly, they do a lot of stuff that I don't know how to do, and they do it better than I would. And so, yeah, we're supported by
on the wellness side. Even you got your dude Chris, who's in the sauna every day, running runs that I couldn't imagine running. So it's no joke.
Karen's doing saunas and cold plunges.
I know. I talked to Karen too.
Oh,
cold plunging and sauna. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with them. I'm in the sauna for 2 hours a week. I take a cold shower every day. I usually cold plunge when I'm running twice a week. And 5 minutes in a cold plunge is day changing.
It's amazing how much better you feel afterward.
Not even just 5 minutes afterwards, 5 hours afterwards. You're like, what drug did I do? Oh, I just sat in really cold water for 3 minutes. Got it. So awesome, Geoff. We got to do this again, man. Really enjoyed time with you. And again, Geoff Passehl, Passehl Financial, Wealth and Wellness. Any events coming up for Wealth and Wellness before we go?
We're actually doing an Alice's Lemonade Stand Foundation lemonade stand here in the parking lot this Thursday.
Oh, at the Mickleton office.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're going to do an event for some clients who are golf fanatics with a really sharp doctor of physical therapy who's done some work with the PGA Tour. And so we're going to take a dozen of our clients over to his facility and have them. He's going to work on their golf swings from an injury prevention perspective.
Awesome. Yeah,
so that'll be some fun. And we're going to do a webinar later this year with a professional coach whose background, she's a psychologist. And so she'll work with folks on sort of the mental approach to life.
Mental, so I love that. If wellness isn't part mental, you're not doing it right. So, and I love that it's for Alex Lemonade Stand too. It's a great foundation that, and if anyone goes to the Mickleton parking lot, you'll see Geoff's building and what he's done there. And another reason why you'll want to make him your financial planner, because he turned a crappy old building into one of the nicest looking buildings I've seen in South Jersey. So good work.
Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, Geoff, have a good one, man. Look forward to doing this again soon. Have a great day. Appreciate your time.
All right, brother. Thanks. Keep up the good work. See ya.
You too.
Bye-bye.